Thank you, Ramon, for going through all the security issues and fraud issues here in India. We now have the opportunity to ask questions, to perhaps have a debate amongst ourselves. Please respond to each other. I think, and there will be microphones handed out. There's one already. But before we open discussion, I have a question myself, and that is, it all boils down to a culture of security. And the question I have is there an adequate culture of security within India, within the Indian IT and BPO industry?
Can I answer that, Job?
Yep.
Come back to something I said in the delivery here up front when I asked you to close your eyes. Wednesday we had a review, and Kiran, chairman of NASSCOM, was there, and several other people, CEOs. I think, and we jointly believe, India as a country does more in security. The BPO service providers do more to security than many other providers, if not the most, than anywhere else in the world. That's certainly the view when you're in here. But outside India, rightly or wrongly, I'm not judging that, the view is different. So that would argue the following consideration: do we need to do something about perception? Because as Raman quite clearly said, and I can totally agree with him, I fully subscribe to it, BS 7799. Do people know what the BS stands for? It's a British standard, but it's most popular in India. Go figure. So India is very secure, absolutely. But we need to work on something to do with perception.
Yeah, let me add to what Hans said. You know, we were having this discussion in the US as well. In terms of security, what US companies expect of Indian vendors is much more than what some of the onshore vendors are willing to provide. Some of the physical security aspects that's almost a given in the US, such as no cell phones, no internet access, and so on and so forth. If that's the rule that gets enforced in the US, the vendors, onshore vendors, are not going to have too many employees working for them. So whilst that is a reality, I do agree with Hans that the perception is that we have to have a higher level of security or request a higher level of security from our offshore vendors.
We have a question here on the right, and then please go ahead.
It's nothing to do with India and all that. My question is very specific. It's nothing to do with the police station, not to do with the existing database. I've been for 20 years in the industry, and I head a company in Bangalore. How do I know a new criminal as he walks into my organization?
If you figure it out, patent it, there's a lot of money to be made. You know, if it was that simple, that industry would have died. Like you and I are recruiting people for our companies, these criminal gangs are recruiting people to be criminals. And their target audience is your and my employees. So that they can continue, you and I continue to pay them a salary, and then these guys get some little bit from them. But that is the reality. You know, I should know about it. Yeah, I should also not have gravity so that I don't have, you know, to do a lot of things. But the reality is gravity is there and these criminals are there.
Raman, can I ask a counter question? Yes, you're right on, you know, criminal backgrounds of people. But, and I'm not pointing this towards anyone in particular, but do you have the same cynical view towards your suppliers as well? And I'm naming a few of them to not single out one of them. Do you trust Microsoft, Cisco, Juniper? Do you trust all of them? Do you know their boxes are secure from the start? What are we doing to push that industry? Because last year IBM did research, 7,700 plus some software bugs were uncovered, and they were exploited to get into your system. What are we doing to, sure we need to do the background checks on our people. I argued that in my first session. But we also need to do the same thing towards our suppliers. It's not just a people thing.
like that, do we have some kind of psychometric or other tests? I mean, I believe there are, because from academia you learn, but it's not come into the industry yet. So I wondered whether anybody here had knowledge of that. If you could do some kind of profiling, you can identify criminals on, through some testing mechanisms. Why can't we do that?
Can I respond to that? Are there any mechanisms in the industry currently used to identify criminals amongst ourselves?
I mean, just as in Thomas profiling, you can find out if somebody is looking for a job,
Yeah.
is looking for a change. It's very advanced. I mean, we use that a lot, but from this, just for this criminal part, I was wondering if there was something new which I didn't know, with, the people from all over the world. Yeah.
But is there a culture that you ask for references if an employee comes along?
No, I mean, people can pass all that. I mean, references, telephonic, written, email, all that is, we are not talking about that. I'm talking of a yet-to-be criminal.
Okay.
Like somebody who has, who has an appetite for it, who has the inclination for it, who's got the right skill set for it, the mindset for it, and then when he's going to become one, or actually the time he's going to commit that theft or whatever. No, it's not a joke. Every time we find people, they can sabotage. I'm not talking only about theft. They can really sabotage and screw up projects.
Sir, I think all five of us.
What is required is to set up a process for you to be able to identify. Because I don't think this is about knowing it linked to people. If you have processes that make people understand that they will be caught, that they are monitored, and there will be consequences, even the criminal intent doesn't change into reality. It's a global industry. It is not an Indian problem. It is a global problem, and everybody is grappling with it. The best solution that has been found till date, and that is where some of these standards come from my understanding, and I'm a mere student of this industry, I try to learn a lot, is to put in a process that is a deterrent. And where you catch people to make an example of it, so that others who have that intent do not cross over. And then they go and find another company where the processes are not that good. And if the entire industry upgrades, then there will be no processes and that industry will die. But I think the entire challenge, my learning, and I meet a lot of customers, I process business for across the world. I think the solution lies only in process, and that is what you hear some of my co-panelists, they make a business of helping companies come up with those processes, come up with those criteria, come up with those methodologies.